Alright, we got this Kleinn kit, air horn, train air horn. What we're doing first is we went through the whole instruction manual, read it, and we decided the easiest way to make sure everything is in the kit is to put everything temporarily where it goes. So all the nuts and bolts are in position. And so we have everything. We added a couple of washers to a few of the bolts that didn't have double washers. We did that. I got all the fittings for the air tank and put those in with Teflon tape. Now the kit comes with a seal, but I haven't had good luck with seal, and I want to make sure that it doesn't leak, so I went ahead and used Teflon tape. Some of them are in permanently, some of them are not, because we have to pivot these fittings to the position for the hose to fit exactly the way it should. So only a few of them are tight. Now, the compressor is supposed to be bolted into the compressor mount first, so we're going to bolt that in tight, and then we're going to go ahead and fit everything underneath the car. We've already temporarily tried the brackets. It looks like it fits great. We really didn't have any problems. So we're gonna go ahead and put the compressor in now permanently, and then start putting either this section in first or the air horn section in first. I don't think it really matters what section you put in first. Alright, well, right now I've just installed the compressor in the compressor box. I looked at the instructions. I did change a few things around. They say they want the bolts going up. I like them going down, because if your nuts fall off, you don't have to worry about losing your bolts, and it's a lot less expensive changing nuts. That's one thing. Now, I noticed in the instructions, well, in the installation kit, they gave you small washers and told us not to torque it too tight. There's only 4 bolts that hold this compressor on. The upper washers should be a little bit larger. Now, this is mounted on an isolator, which will vibrate, and that helps out from not breaking the bolts, or it actually helps the unit from not getting beat to death from vibration and everything. Basically, that's it. We did install this air hookup. It's an inlet port on the front side. That was in the kit, so we took that out, installed that. Now what that connects to is this air box here. Now there's filters that go inside the air box. I'll show you the filters. These are the filters. They gave you a replacement one if they get wet or get just dirty. You want to keep those clean at all times, and they're mounted inside the engine compartment up high. And to connect that with this, they give you another fitting that screws onto it, and then you just put your air hose fitting from the compressor to the air box. As far as the tools you're going to need to mount this to the air compressor tank, it's a 5/8 inch socket and ratchet, and open end or box end, whatever you want to use. To mount your compressor with the 4 bolts, it's a 5/16. I think what we're going to do now is go inside the car underneath and mount this.
Alright, so once you've loosened up the 2 forward bolts on the tow hook and you've removed the rear bolt, you should get it so it's nice and loose so you can easily manipulate it. This is the small toaster out of the 2. This is going to go right here. It's going to drop in place. That's going to be one of your attachment points.
Go ahead and turn it on.
It's better when you have 3 hands than 2. Right now we're trying to get the middle section bolt through that's tucked in behind the air compressor. Alright, so we've got this in place now. It's just snug. We're tightening up the tow hook bolt One thing we changed was the bolt that's going on the opposite side of this compressor. They say to put it in this way. We didn't do that, we reversed it. It's much easier when you reverse it and you have the bolt coming from the opposite side of the frame. So we recommend you do it that way, even though the directions tell you to put it in this way first. Next we're going to do the install on the tanks and get that set up. Alright, so we got the tank in place. We've got the bolts where they need to be. And now we're tightening them up. You can see the clearance is pretty close to the sway bar, but it works. After we get it tightened up, we're going to hook up the main air hose, the silver braided one, to the tank, and then go from there.
Now, here's your red wire that goes into the compressor, 10 gauge, and here's your black ground. And with the black ground, I just drilled a 40 hole into the frame. I used a bonding brush. I'll show you what that is in case you don't know. Cleaned off the paint completely, and then I used their screw that they provide.
So in this next section, we're going to talk about the horn assembly and placement of the horns. The instructions show you this picture here with the solenoid on the far end. That's going to be incorrect. You're going to want to take that horn with the solenoid and place it in the middle. If you don't do that, then it will not fit when you try to install it into the truck. Something else that I want to mention is the instructions say to remove the trumpets. You don't actually have to do that. You can get around and do everything you need to do with still leaving them on. Alright, we watched the video on Kleinn. The directions are not so great. What we gathered was this is the one that we don't want to use. So the one that's facing on the outside of the solenoid you don't use. Either one of these doesn't matter. You just got to remember which color you're going to be using that's going to go into the cabin for your push button. So looking at this, we're using, which one are we doing?
You're using the purple one. The black one just goes to immediate ground. Any
okay.
Ground on the
black one's going to the ground. The purple one's going to go to the button inside the cabin. And then we feed the wires through here and then out, and then we're going to close up the unit.
Now we did run the ground from the solenoid to the frame over here. You can see where we ran it. We did the same thing there. I didn't have the washer on this side, so you can actually see the bonding brush marks. It took the paint completely off. It's beautiful. You got your self-tapping screw that they have with the kit. It's great. All you have to do is terminate the wire once you get the length, and it's done. All right, so that was that. Now the upper bolt was a little bit of a problem for us, and it was because the toast bracket, which we have another video on, and plus when you look in the instructions you'll understand what a toast bracket is. I don't have three hands, so I can't point it out, but it's up in there. It picks up the top bolt, and we had to grind it down a little bit to fit inside the channel, the factory channel, and it has an existing hole in the factory channel, so the bolt with the spacer goes through and into it. But now, because the bolt wasn't exactly flush with the bracket, and I'm sure it was just one of those one-time deals, we really should have ground out or drilled out the hole a little bit in the frame. In addition to that, we could have actually drilled completely through the back side of the frame because the bolt itself was about 3/8 of an inch too long. So I ended up having to cut the bolt about 3/8 of an inch, and I'm just guessing at that. It might have been more, but I think it was 3/8 of an inch. I put the bolt in first with the washer on it, took a measurement, and I cut it. And of course, we did get it started. It went in, and it's nice now. It's perfect. Now what I'm going to do first is show you the electrical system and how we installed it. It's really basic. Kleinn puts out a very good schematic in their directions. I'm going to show you the schematic. We made a few changes to it. Everything's in there. You don't, and the kit is really a good kit. Well designed. Everything goes together very easily. Now the first thing we do with the electrical, you don't have to be an electrical engineer to do this. Like I say, it's very simple. First thing we have to do is find where we're going to put the relay. Okay, so we put the relay in an area where there's a factory shroud that has a welded bolt on it. So that's right up here in front, right underneath, right next to the radiator, about 6 inches away from it, as you can see. Okay, that's the first thing we're going to do. We found the position for that. Next thing you're going to do, if you're looking at the wiring schematic, you're going to take the number 10 gauge red wire and you're going to hook it up to the battery terminal. And you're going to hook it up to number 30, which is the bottom connector on the relay. The relay looks like this. Okay, so you've got your numbers, 30, 85, 87, and 86. 30 is your main power distribution area. So you have to hook that one up. And now that has a built-in fuse, and I'm going to try and show it to you. Here's the fuse, if you can see it. Okay, now remove the fuse before you do any connections. Make sure you cut the wire so you have a little extra. You don't want to go right up to it and have no room to do any extra splicing in case you have to change anything. Now you can see what I did. I have a lot of droop loop off of the relay, and that's what you should have. You always want extra wire. So you can hook that up first, get that out of the way. You want to do the easiest stuff first. The next step is if you come off of 86 terminal on the relay, which is this one, it's a ground. Okay, now there's several grounds that you can connect it to on the truck. This is one of them. You can come right off of the relay and go right to here. Now we had some problems with it. We weren't getting good connection. It turned out it was open in the wire, so we just took a jumper and jumped it from 86 to the battery terminal, or the negative battery terminal, and that worked. So since I had the wire already cut and spliced and terminated, I decided to run it. So I ran it alongside the battery and back of the battery to the negative terminal. I got that out of the way. Okay, and also I picked up two areas on the fender. I put some plastic clamps holding the wire loom. Makes it look a lot nicer. And then this other wire loom I'm going to tie wrap. That takes care of the real easy stuff as far as wiring. The next step will be to take wire and run it through the firewall. Now that is another pretty easy job, but it takes a little time. You're going to run a yellow wire, a purple wire, and a red wire. It's all 18 gauge through the firewall. Now I'm going to put a light up here, and you can hopefully you'll be able to see where that is. Now if you can't see it this way, I'm going to go inside and show you. Now there's a panel down there that it's a little panel, plastic. I drilled right through it from the inside of the vehicle.
There's a section that's already pre-cut out to run this loom through. On the inside where the engine is, you're going to look for a plastic plate, and you can actually get a drill motor in from inside the cabin to drill through. This will be a little foamy section here, is what I'm pressing on, and then you can run the whole wire and loom through that. After that, after you get all the wires set up, you'll put some silicone in to seal it up, and then it'll protect anything from coming in through the cabin, any smells or additional noises.
Now, we found a good location for it. You can see in the video where it is. What we did was we measured between centers on each edge and from the upper side to the lower side, and we looked underneath the dashboard to make sure there was plenty of room, and there was, so we drilled a pilot hole, and from the pilot hole we very carefully used a unibit. And this is what they look like. If you don't know, you can pick them up at Home Depot, Harbor Freight, or any of these places. It does precision holes, and that's what you need. You need precision holes for this. You have a very little lip on this horn button. So after we drilled the pilot hole, we very carefully went in with a unibit and reamed it to the exact diameter of the horn button. Okay, now after we did that, we started running the wires. Now you're going to run a red wire and a purple wire to the horn assembly. Now I'm going to show you the schematic that we have here to work with. Now, can you see that? I hope you can see it. We have the yellow wire, the purple wire, and this red wire. The purple and red wire go to the horn button. The yellow wire comes off the compressor tank and it goes to the ignition switch. Now in the ignition switch we have 4 different color wires. We picked the red wire. It's a hot wire. The instructions tell us to pick a wire that is not 12 volts when ignition's off. But what we did was we incorporated a switch in between there so we could turn it off at any time. So basically that was the easiest way possible. And we put a posi tap on the red wire connecting the yellow wire. Now I'm going to show you what a posi tap is if you've never seen it. This is a posi tap. Okay? It's real easy to install. It's the way to go. Just put this on this way. You see a little pin there. You screw it in the position. It locks. It goes into the wire and locks into it. Now this other side unscrews, and then you put your wire in it and then screw it into it and it locks in place. So that's what we did with the ignition switch wire. And then we ran a switch. I'll show you where the switch is. It's underneath. It's underneath the dashboard. And this location was great because it already had a hole in it, so all we had to do was take the unibit and take it out just a little bit so it would fit in there. And the switch is rated for 15 amps. So if anything happens, that'll go first, and you won't have to worry about anything going wrong with the switch or anything else. What you're looking at now is the air box. And you can see the line, how it goes up through, and you can see where the air box is attached to. It was a pre-existing hole on that shroud. All I had to do was take it out to the right size so that lock air box would snap right in, and it did. And that line goes to an air box very high up in the engine compartment, and you want to keep that nice and dry. Now that air line goes through a factory lightning hole. You should be able to see it. A factory lightning hole. You see that? I put a rubber grommet there so it wouldn't chafe on the metal, and then up to the actual air box. Real nice installation, and it had a pre-existing hole.
Alright, that was the overview of the installation of the Ram 1500 Kleinn air horn. I hope it helps you guys get it installed in your truck. If you have any questions, just leave a comment below. I'll try and help you out the best I can. It was definitely a learning experience for me, and I'm sure there's better ways to do it, but that's just the way I found at the time. Definitely review your instructions multiple times before installing this, and then just cross-reference with my video. I think you guys will be doing pretty well.